a pile of rubble off the side. And you don't hear anybody talk about that. I've heard a couple people mention it, but they don't know for sure. And so here they are at the Wailing Wall, and yet it's the foundation of the Roman garrison, because Yeshua said, looking at the temple, not one stone will be left on top of another. Well, here's the whole Wailing Wall.
Yeah, is it sure?
Because when they burned the place down, the gold melted, and it went through in the cracks of every stone, and so they pulled every stone apart to get to the gold. Every stone that it melted into was pulled apart, and what you're left with is a pile of rubble, and everything was taken away. And it's like, so what are we reverencing? But I was looking at that and saying, Kadosh, Kadosh, Saviv, Saviv, Kadosh, Kadoshim. The only way for this to be Kadosh, much less Kodashim, which is the ultimate, the greatest of sacred, is for this place to get bulldozed down to bare earth. After all, Yahweh said, let there not be any hand-cut stone on my altar. You got a natural stone. There's nothing Kadosh here. Do you think he's going to come back and build an altar up on top of it? He can't. It's not Kadosh. Kadosh is natural as he made it. That's all. So I'm looking at this and going, this whole thing we've been lied to. The whole thing is convoluted. There's no way that there's anything here in Jerusalem on this Temple Mount that's Kadosh, whether they claim it's Israeli or claim it's Arab or Palestinian or anything else.
Well,
You go back to these words. And then you start picking apart, what is Saviv, Saviv, Kadosh, Kadoshim? This is the teaching regarding the temple. Saviv, Saviv. Saviv. Samek, Bet, Yod, Bet. Sounds like Aviv. Aleph, Bet, Yod, Bet. What is Aviv? Springtime. When the Aleph, the plan, bets into, because Bet, Bet is a gateway or an entrance. So Aviv is springtime, when the plan of that which has been laying dormant springs about. But what is Samek, Bet, Yod, Bet? Now we're just applying the principle from here to there. Well, the Samek is the menorah. The Samek is do justly, unvine you the branches. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. And Bet Yod Bet, Bet Bet is a gateway or an entrance. In fact, Het Bet Bet, Chavav, Chavave, Habibi, is where I think where we get hey baby. It means dearly beloved, the one close to my heart. Het is container, Bet is a container, and another Bet is like the Holy of Holies, the one dear in here is Chavav, Habib.
Can you do me Antika?
Huh?
Can you do me Antika? I meant for you to do that last night. I forgot.
Okay, well, here, let me get
Okay.
basic point here. So Saviv, Saviv, if it's the entrance, what is opened up to for keeping the instructions of righteousness in the standards that he gave, saying, I'm the vine, you're the branches. Do what I said to do. Around and around. Round and around what? Every seventh day sit down. Keep the 7 festivals. Watch for just go round and round. And so what's supposed to happen? We don't know what's going to happen. But the 3 most primary tools of engineering that were invented were the wheel, the lever, and the inclined plane. What's a screw nut? Combination of all 3. As you go around and around with a fine thread screw, it increases. And as you go round and around, like in a car jack, if you're spinning the thing around, it acts with leverage force. And the longer or the finer the thread, the easier it is to do. If you have a steep threaded, like going up terraces on a mountainside, the steeper it is, going switchbacks, it's pretty tough. But if there are switchbacks that are, how easy is it to sit down? He always says, I told you in quietness and rest was your strength. But you would not. You said, no, we're going to run on fast horses. And he said, okay, you're going to run. And I'm going to give your enemies faster horses. I told you in quietness and rest was your strength. So, this is again like putting things together like a formula, like reverse engineering, like analysis of what he said. What if every week we sit down is like going around another screw thread? And eventually, we don't even see it happening, like watching your kids grow, but eventually, it's moving up, around and around. Doing what? Doing the Kadosh thing. Which become what? Kodashim. What is Kodashim? It's the plural, but it's also the greatest form of. What if he's telling us in his words that this is the teaching regarding the house, the bet? Just start doing what I told you around and around, which is very easy. You sit down and you talk about it. You talk about the Kadosh things. These are the Kadosh things. By studying the Aleph Bet, we are doing automatically everything he told Israel to do. We're sitting down, we're talking about those things, His words are in our mouth, we're discussing Him as we lay down, as we rise up, as we walk on the way, as we sit in our house, teach them to our children. Simply by studying the language, we find ourselves obeying and fulfilling the covenant that everybody told us we couldn't ever do. Very simple. What a riddle, what a mystery, what a... Okay, so you look at Mantika. If you, Mem,
Okay, wait just a minute.
sure,
You're just gonna take any letter and apply it?
Yeah.
And not just Torah letter?
that's it. Because English and Greek came out of Hebrew, so now we're going to play. Man,
I'll watch.
Can you do lard too though? Because I think it means lard.
It does, but it was.
Lard?
But just
Yeah.
a second, before we really do this, technically, it was supposed to be named Montica, Montca. There was a typo that, the lady that was typing it
It's a
spelled it
vowel.
Manteca, so technically it should have been Montica, not Mantica.
That would
Well,
just
it comes
be
from
an
Spanish,
iron
and in
and
Spanish
then-
it's pronounced mantica, but I believe
That
in
would
Spanish
just be a
it's
vowel.
spelled mantica, M-A-N.
Okay, so this town was supposed to be called Mon, M-O-N.
So wouldn't that just be a vowel point or?
yeah, so here's the thing.
Because Manteca means lard, Montica, I don't know what, I think it was somebody's name actually that came to town and it was going to be named after them, technically.
They had a
like
rendering plan
Suet,
here, they had
lard.
a large rendering plan, I always thought that.
Is that
That came after the name,
Oh, did it?
yes. So
Never mind, just do Butterfinger.
Anyway,
Just kidding. Never mind, just do Butterfinger.
So it doesn't matter because it was really technically
Okay,
Monteca.
so here's what this is. This, again, there's nothing mystical about this. This is just playing around with phonetics, just to see what's in it. Okay, so
Charlie.
the vowel points were added. Okay, so if it was an O sound or a U sound, if it was a U or an O, it might be a Vav. In which case you might have Mem Vav Nun. But if it's just a M Ah, like an A sound with a short sound, it could just be Mem Nun. Mem Nun is where you get the word manna, or min, minha aret, out of and up from, right, like a fan, most of the hem, min ha aret. Min is Mem Nun, or maybe it's Mem Yod Mem, but it means up from and out of. Min, like the womb of the earth, the wheat, the bread jumps out of the earth. So once you know that, all of a sudden you hear these phrases and you're like, oh, well, I don't even know how to speak, and I can see Mem Nun, M-N, Mon, Mon. We can look it up in the dictionary to double check, but it basically means up from, out of, away. Mem itself is the prefix that means from, or the place, or the, kind of like the one. It also means opposite or against. Because away from, so now here's a weird thing. When I say that one letter can mean its opposite, Mem can mean the place what it's at, but because it also means away from, it also means the one who's opposite, contrary to, which is the opposite of being the place where it's at. And so how do you know which it is in Hebrew? And again, I found the same word translated both different ways because they don't know, they can't tell. So when we trust the translators, we don't know who we're trusting. But anyway, it could mean opposite. So noon is to say you jump, and it's action. And this could be a tav or it could be a tet, and a tet would be a full basket. And a tav yod, you could say, well, that's kind of a picture of my covenant. Or if it's a full basket, you could say my stuff, or the stuff I own, or my property. And if it's a covenant, you could say what I've sworn to, you might say. And then this could either be a kuf or a kaf. And a kaf hey is where we get the word similar to kaf nun, which is yes or truly or thus. It's the affirmative. Kuf hey, well, kuf vav is the word line, as in line upon line. It's also the bullseye of a target where you get the word a radius, which can move around and determine from the center. So kufab is also like the pillar of fire and the pillar of smoke, whereas the kaf could be the picture of, you might say, the Torah or the instructions. So because it's a phonetic and you can't prove whether it's a kuf or a kaf, you could look at them both. So you could say, well, if this could mean past or future, and with the yod, like that other word we looked at, could mean I have. And this hey at the end can mean to express or to show. So you could say, from the place that I have jumped from the place I come from to show the Torah, from the place that I jumped away from, Torah instruction, the lines of his instruction. This is like from the phrase line upon line, precept upon precept. It's kufav and zadivav, line and precept. So I express his instructions. Away from the place that I was born, away from the place that I came from, I now express and show forth the Torah instructions.
That's happening right now.
Huh?
That's happening right now? Yeah.
So again, whether that's really what it means, we're just looking at the letters and trying to read into it.
Yeah,
How
see,
it fits.
what I would take on what you just did here is this is dishonest. Because if you take the actual meaning of the word, not just the sounds of the letters,
Right. So
then you are making it mean something currently that it may have not intended to mean.
that's right. That's right. I admit that. So here,
Okay.
now let's look at Memnun and see if there happens to be a Hebrew word.
Eric,
Yes.
we have to leave like in 15 minutes.
Oh, okay.
And
We should wind this down, but let me just
I
finish.
mean, even in
looking
Edenics, there are rules that he follows. It's just because it sounds alike doesn't mean
That's right.
that you can just, take
So-
some alphabet soup and say, oh, look what's in my soup, look what it
Right,
meant.
so I'm not saying that this is exactly what it is, but
Okay.
what I'm saying is, I think I mentioned yesterday, the day before, if you give some kids some blocks to play with,
Yeah,
it's like, let's just not throw them at each other. Right? You
Yeah.
can build whatever you want.
yeah.
They're letters.